Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tarnished Bronze. Today, you and Patrick have the misfortune of joining me for my first Legion of Superheroes comic, which is a double feature in Secret Origins with the Legion of Substitute Heroes and Dr. Light. And as you can see from this cover, Dr. Light has captured the Legion of Substitute Heroes and has this awesome machine with three settings: hurt, now it really hurts, and kill. And so I was like super excited to have these two kind of super villains and superhero teams kind of fighting each other. And the cover is brought to us by Ty Templeton, along with the Legion of Superheroes issue, a Legion of Substitute Heroes issue. And now I've subtitled this episode Batman Adventures Begins. So Ty Templeton goes on to do the covers and some of the interiors for the comic book based on the animated series. And many would argue that this Batman animated series comic book is actually the best Batman comic book of maybe the last 30 or 40 years. So he has that style that kind of lends itself to that animation thing. Patrick, have you read this before, or are you just reading it because we're doing it on the channel?
I did own it, actually. When you sent the list and it was in the list, I was like, do I have that one? And then I have to say, I think I told you this in real life, but when I read it, I was like, why did he put this on the list? Because I had forgotten that you said it was your first issue. Then it made sense, but yeah, when I read it, I reread it, I was like, oh my God, why? And then when I found out it was your introduction, it all made sense, and I felt very sorry for you. And now
Yeah,
I know why you say I'm so lucky because all of my first introductions to so many characters have been much better. So yeah. I'd also
yeah.
like to point out I mean, it's the Legion of Substitute Heroes, so I don't know if it was technically your first Legion. I don't know if that counts.
Okay, so then my first Legion would have been in the same big chunk of comics that my grandma probably got me for some Christmas. I think that there was an issue of Legionnaires, but that might be the wrong date, or probably more correctly, Legion of Superheroes from that 89 reboot. Now, if that's impenetrable and we're in our 40s and 50s, it's impenetrable if you are going to be like,
When you say Legionnaires, I wonder if it might have been Legionnaires 3, which was a short series that they did about the founders that was around this time, late 80s, as opposed to the Legionnaires, the Archie Legion, where it was rebooted after
oh,
5 years later.
Legionnaires 3. Yeah,
Might
definitely.
have
It
been
wasn't
that.
a contemporary comic. It was like maybe 2 or 3 years old in like one of those multi-pack sort of things. So, yeah, probably issue two of that, and they're going traveling to Earth for reasons that escape me because they're already on
Random.
Earth. Anyway, we could delve into my psychosis all day, but the main event is essentially this first saga is the Legion of Substitute Heroes, and it's kind of written and drawn by Ty Templeton, who, like I said, is a kind of stylist. Like he's got this very cartoony sort of thing. He hasn't
It's
quite landed
crazy.
on it. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say it's crazy to me. I didn't realize until you said it that the cover artist did the subs story because the art looks so different to me.
Yeah, so he does end up being sort of like a cover artist, and then 15, 20 years into his career, he starts doing the interiors for the rebranded Batman animated series comic. So he has this kind of, you know, different styles, I think, and he is inked by someone else in this particular subs one, so that might also explain some of the differences. Whereas he has that almost it's so clean you could put it in an Archie comic, that
Mhm.
cover art style. Like it really does look like something that from the 50s, and I mean that in a positive sense in this way.
Oh
Like
yeah, no, I actually prefer the cover, full disclosure, to the actual sub story. But having you explain that about the animation style, looking at it now, I can see exactly what you're talking about. And actually, this has happened before when we've reviewed stuff. When I've read it, maybe I was maybe not a huge fan of the art, but then when I review it, I see things that I like more about it sort of after the second or third go around.
Yeah, so this everyone on the channel, this is a tough read. Like as you can see from the opening page, we're not doing a splash page, we're getting to a page of text. So some odd choices. Now, if you're doing a funny book, then maybe have a gag at the start. And so that's one of the things that I think at least Ambush Bug gets right is like you know the tone of this from the fact that the first picture is like a parody of Crisis of Infinite Earths and all the Earths are surrounding Ambush Bug. Here we don't get the gag. It's not a gag start. It's like a start of Star Wars where we have all the text on the screen.
But full of bad punny dad jokes though. So I
it,
mean you do get the style that it's gonna be.
but when you're 7, you don't know it's a dad joke. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, yeah.
So
No, 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 that's fair. That's fair. But I mean, that's what my first line, my lead for this was just what everyone did not need, which was a silly revamping of the origin of the Legion of Substitute Heroes filled with lame jokes. Like, not
That's a
definitely
great
not up my
that's a great
alley.
tagline. Yeah,
Yes,
we didn't need it, we didn't want it, we didn't ask for it, and nonetheless we
here it
got it.
is. Yes. And, let's make sure that we tell it this time from the point of view of Ral Benham, seen here, who turns into Chlorophyll Kid. He's a self-identified idiot
Yeah,
who ignores. Now, this I thought was cute, where he completely ignores the myriad of signs telling him to turn around, don't come in, this is dangerous, and just decides to take a relaxing sits, is that what we call it, in a dangerous vat of chemicals. And as luck would have it, this gives him the ability to speed up or slow down plant growth, and thus he is Chlorophyll Kid. Now, Chlorophyll Kid will be. I wonder if this is somehow connected to your love of pouches, because Chlorophyll Kid always had pouches, even back in the Silver Age, because he can't make plants grow that aren't already there. So he would always carry seeds with him. So maybe he is the genesis of your love for pouches.
yeah, the pouch primogenitor.
Yeah,
Um,
you never know.
yeah,
Pouch patient zero.
yeah. Great puns, just right up the alley for this issue. And just so you fully know that he's an idiot, the one thing about being so painfully dumb is that you learn not to trust your instincts, which is like just such a wise phrase um, for an idiot. It's a very wise phrase. And I do like in the under the zip tones here, the two medical officers or scientists that are like seeing. So we don't see the transformation; we just kind of see the result and what's wrong with his. Yeah, so good. So we're then led to this Legion tryout, and so I'm just highlighting some of the art here. I actually really like the cartoon art. It really dovetails beautifully with the sort of content. Now, as a child, I thought this is not the Rob Liefeld sort of art, and I didn't really have as much time for it as I do now. Now I find this just really beautiful, really fantastic, and sort of joyous, and it really suits the tone. And you look at all of the efforts, so just magnificent background details. All of the signs on each of these kind of things say something about what we're going to be getting into. But Chlorophyll Kid, he's not exactly top draw as far as like um, Legion recruiting material. So we've already had another guy try out, and he's Estimate Boy, and basically he can give you the general gist of some sort of numerical query that you might have, which is how useful would that be, Patrick?
Yeah, not very. I'd also point out that Chlorophyll Kid, now they've drawn him without the pouches, so it's made me look like a fool, but trust me, he always had the pouches. The other thing, though, that just struck me, and I didn't put this in my notes, I didn't think about it until just now, but Chlorophyll Kid was always drawn as overweight. So they've slimmed him up. He's put him on the Ozempic plan, for
Yeah.
this retelling of the origin of the subs. So that's just one particular difference because otherwise he looks quite similar to what we're used to. But I guess his waistline is a little bit been retconned here. But
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
his tryout. Go ahead.
he's slightly portly, I think, and then that might be he might get a sort of maybe a new outfit towards the end of this issue, or maybe that's his subs outfit and this is just his tryout outfit. So he might not be off the boil quite yet, Patrick, as far as Chlorophyll Kid and his pouches. So
But yeah, his tryout does not go well, and of course, when he fails at that, he kind of joins up with some other rejects: Polar Boy, Night Girl, Stone Boy, and Fire Lad, and together they decide to create the Legion of Substitute Heroes.
and I love him demonstrating how he got his powers. So he's got a nice sort of thing that he can put up on a projector screen and a nice pointer, and he can say, "Oh, here's this vat of chemicals," and so on and so forth. And then they're like, "What's your power, mate? Like, do your thing." And he's like, "Oh, I see that pot plant over there. Like, I can make it get a bit more bushy." Like, it's just so good, Patrick. And I love the whole he's on this checkerboard. That's all of the sashes and the things that you have at the bank, like to keep the queue orderly. And then there's that kind of round table sort of
The Velvet
judges
Rope.
looking down at him. It's kind of like getting the the that sort of uncomfortable feeling that you and I would have if we were told, oh, like if we had to demonstrate how we mattered in each day, like to a tribunal, the same sort of vibes. We're getting into the real sort of crux of the matter is that there's some acorn people who are sort of terrorizing the joint. Now, Chlorophyll Kid has his pouches.
Well,
So,
now that's a flight belt.
oh, is he using the? Oh, that's right. So they get anyway as a lucky door prize of failure. You kind
Yes.
of get a flight belt from the Legion of Superheroes as a thanks to playing kid kind of thing. So now Stone Boy, Night Girl, is it not Night Girl?
Yeah, that's right.
Night Girl. I'm just the updo is putting me off. Night Girl, Stone Boy, Polar Boy, and Chlorophyll Kid have their at least the ability to fly around. Some great sort of panels here. It's a bit busy, the text. So the one thing I think that Ty Templeton kind of does at the end is he as his career goes on, he relies less. He lets his gag cartooning sell the gag rather than have to
Mhm.
like duplicate it in the text panels. But anyway, one thing I did. Who's the fire guy, by the way?
Fire Lad.
Fire, fire guy is Fire Lad. So yeah, this honestly, this didn't really wash into me at the time, but in the 30 years since reading this, I kind of did get interested in Legion of Superheroes. And so that's why I kind of thought, oh, I'll revisit this. And is there a reason why I avoided these issues like the plague? And I think I unfairly did. This is meant to be sort of funny. We've done the substitute heroes, we've done Ambush Bug. I think this is in the same vein as those, as opposed to necessarily being in the vein of like a comic book that necessarily someone who was just reading the Nightfall issues of Batman and the Death of Superman would be all that interested in. Just love this panel. Fantastic panel. Like just beautiful artistic stuff. This is a little bit what he will lean into when he does those Batman animated series, like the good shading and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Anyway, they somehow get to the planet of the Acorn people, and this is where Chlorophyll Kid can really excel. Patrick is what can he do?
He can make all the acorns turn into tree men. So he basically takes the storage acorns and speeds them up so that they become part of the tree men population. And they think, wow, we've caused such a problem for them on their planet that they can no longer invade Earth. But what ends up happening is the Legion has tracked the invasion back to the planet of the tree men, and now they have to fight all the extra tree men that Chlorophyll Kid created. So they kind of didn't help. after all.
Would
Now, the substitute heroes are very heavy. They always have been heavy on comic relief, and that sort of accelerated and sort of became their chief milieu after Levitz and Giffen kind of got a hold of them in the 80s. So by this time, they're sort of complete jokes and used almost solely. And I don't know if would that have appealed to you as a kid? Because for me as a kid, I was very turned off by that. I would, as soon as I saw something like that, I took everything very seriously, especially comic books, and any comic book that was trying to not take comic books seriously was something that I was not interested in.
so let's put it this way: Calvin and Hobbes is the finest work of literature in the English language. I loved Calvin and Hobbes at this time. When I bought a comic book, I was not signing on to like that. Does that,
Yes,
there was like
yes.
a separate magisterium between strips and between comic books, and comic books were meant to be increasing in value, hopefully exponentially, based on the awesomeness of the cover and the amount of pouches that were contained in the art, and and so on and so forth, and the amount of guns and weaps that were
Yeah.
present.
The other thing for me is starting with the subs in the digests, right, from the Silver Age. At that time, they were taken more seriously. So they were rejects from the Legion, and they did maybe have silly powers or they had trouble controlling their powers when they did their tryouts. But when they were members of the Substitute Legion, they actually saved the Legion in very serious ways and contributed multiple times. So that's the way they were treated before the 80s, and that's what I was more used to. I was already aware
So
of these characters.
So they're almost more akin to, say, the Teen Titans, or like maybe not as serious as the George Perez Teen Titans, but they were more like the Teen Titans than they are comic relief.
Yeah, or even more like, or sort of like the last ditch effort Suicide Squad, right? Or
Okay,
something. These are the
so
Hail
New
Mary
Mutants, you're
people.
down to your last New Mutant, and you're sending these kids out to sort of like save the day. Okay, that makes more sense. Now, Night Girl eventually becomes like a proper Legionnaire. Polar Boy becomes a proper Legionnaire. Stone Boy is the hero of the Legion of Super Substitute Heroes special from the 80s. So they all have their own sort of sagas. And this is casting an eye back through memory lane when Polar Boy doesn't have the ice hair. He still has the silly the silly hat. So nonetheless, right now, I think I appreciate more. What I actually love, even like to this second, is just this. It just looks beautiful. Like, I really like this artwork. I really like the only thing is that the weight of the words is kind of like really dragging this down a little bit. And I could have done right now. I could do with a substitute heroes sort of series, played a bit more straight, but done in this style. Um, this style to me kind of like gets at the not willful incompetence, but sort of like the accidental incompetence that the Legion of Substitute Heroes actually harnesses in order to be successful, Patrick. So I don't really have any comments about if it's like highfalutin or lowfalutin, or if it's art, or if it's just someone filling up their day to get a paycheck. But nonetheless, this was my first Legion of Superhero adjacent comic, and I think I appreciate it more now than I did at the time, because at looking at this through the eyes of a 7-year-old, I'm not interested in humor in comics, and these characters are bizarre to me. Like, I didn't realize he's meant to be silly. I didn't realize he's meant to be a normal, just disobeying sort of pudgy kid. It just it came across as a misfire at the time, and now I kind of at least can appreciate the art, Patrick. So, do you have any comments on this? I know that we didn't need a secret origin of the substitute heroes, but nonetheless, we have one.
We didn't. It's very much in the vein of the special that we did, as well as well, we didn't do it, but there's also the very famous DC Comics Presents with Superman, Ambush Bug, and the Legion of Substitute Heroes. So this is very much in the vein of the way they were being written at that time, which again is a little bit more comic relief than I usually like, but I think it does, like you said, I think it works for them for the most part. This one, I feel like there probably could have been a little bit more meat on the bones in terms of the actual sort of plot. Like we learn how they get together, but then the bit with the tree men fell a little bit flat for me. But I do appreciate the art more than I did when I actually reread it. Just looking at it, like I said, in the scans, this has happened before where I can appreciate the facial expressions and whatnot, the different things that the artist is getting across. I think I also reflect reacted sort of poorly to the words. It's a
Yeah.
little bit like we've said before, most of the time when you read a Chris Claremont comic, you're gonna have a lot of words, but it's not gonna seem tedious. These words, on the other hand, it did seem a little bit tedious. It does seem to be bogged down a little bit by
And
how wordy it is.
bogged down is the word because like now I know the characters I'm sort of interested in. I can survive the dialogue, whereas before I had no experience with these characters. I'm reading the dialogue, like it just seems like a weird guy who had bathed in a toxic thing and didn't become the Joker. Like, you know,
And if you think about, I mean, obviously they're just a little bit better, but if you think about, for example, that special we read, right?
yeah,
If that had been your first one as a kid, you probably would have enjoyed it a lot more, in my
yeah,
opinion. I think personally I would, because like I said, I was used to the subs being a little bit more serious and actually legitimately saving the Legion a few times in the little digest that I read. But one I really always enjoyed, and I don't really like Ambush Bug that much, but I really enjoyed the DC Comics Presents, where they are sort of farcical and inept, but it worked. The art is so beautiful in that particular issue, and the writing is so good that for me it works. So you can pull that off from even from somebody who doesn't necessarily enjoy that as much, and other people have done it better. This is decent.
all right. And so the second thing, which I thought when I was seven and reading this was going to tie in, is Dr. Light. And you can see from this amazing opening page, like this Dr. Light is down to his last, not his last dollar, maybe his last dime, Patrick, like at least his, last nickel. He's,
Look at how much. I actually didn't notice this. I'm embarrassed to say, but look how many light fixtures he has. We
yeah, he's
find
got
out
all the,
later that he is afraid of the dark. So that's why he has so many light fixtures. But I did not even really notice that gag. And that's an example of what you're saying before, right? Where we're letting the art tell the gag instead of having it written in the story, right? Where maybe if you were hand holding, which maybe I need that because
yeah.
I didn't really pick up on it, but he'd be going around in 10 different panels, like turning on all the lights, right, that he has. I guess I needed to be hit over the head with it. But this story in particular, the one question I had, I looked at the dates. I don't think that this came out at Christmas time necessarily. Like, I'm just a little bit confused about why it needed the Jacob Marley Ghost of Christmas
Yeah,
Past kind of treatment. It
if
was a
you're
little
confused,
strange.
put yourself in my shoes. If you're confused, you've read like a million comics at this point. Like, we'll go back actually to the title. Like, it might have the cover date.
Oh,
At the end.
it's February,
Okay, yeah. So that's probably
February
it's on
89.
it's on the shelf then in December, at least in
Okay,
Comic
okay.
Gap. Yeah.
So maybe that's why I did wonder that, but yeah, I didn't figure out like exactly what day it would have been out, but
So yeah, he's
yeah,
having
that was a
his
little confusing. Plus, I mean, no offense to you, and I would say this about myself, you would be familiar with, Ebenezer Scrooge and The
yeah,
Night Before
yeah,
Christmas, or is that what it's called? A
uh,
Christmas Carol, right?
yeah.
Yeah. The Night Before Christmas. That's the poem. Okay, okay. Anyway, but you might not. You probably wouldn't even make that connection, really. I mean, yes, you've got a ghost that's in chains, and his first name is Jacob. So as an adult, it's very obvious. But as a kid, I probably would have read right over that and not even paid attention to it.
I because I'm not getting this. I mean, I'm getting this at Christmas, but it that doesn't dawn on me that there could be Christmas stories in comic books. Like,
Yeah, I
yeah, it
just.
probably evaded me entirely.
Oh,
Now,
speaking of, side note, did you ever get those little digests or the ones where it's like DC Christmas? I always
no,
thought those were so lame when I was a kid.
no.
Like Superman saves Christmas. Wonder Woman slides down the chimney. Like, okay.
The as far as I know, the best Christmas comic book is the I think the Kitty Pryde Brood one.
Yep.
Never not surpassed in 45 years, I guess. So these people are drawing a pretty good sciencey sort of room. I like their apparatus, and I like the fact that this guy is just totally willing to just stand in front of this power beam, absorb the power rays, and just yeah, and just have a casual chat with whoever is behind the safety thing and the radiation thing and the wearing the full safety goggles. Like, yeah, that Patrick, would you volunteer to just stand into a ball of power which can
Yeah.
elevate you off the ground?
No, I mean, I've become even, I'm not risk, I'm very risk averse, and I have become more so in my old age. So, yeah, no, absolutely not. This is another story that's told in flashback. Um, Dr. Light, like I said, is afraid of the dark. He's haunted by the ghost of his former partner, Jacob Finley, conveniently named Jacob Finley. And what they're doing here at Star Labs is becoming the absolute masters of light. That's what their work is. Now, the person we know as Dr. Light, aka Arthur Smith, is secretly selling Star Labs technology that he's stolen to, let's say the mafia or whoever, to the bad guys for profit. But Jacob Finley is also keeping his own secrets
mhm.
from Arthur Smith because he's using their light-based technology to try to become a superhero because he wants to join the Justice League.
Yeah, so we've got competing motivations, and just wanted to highlight. I love the little bubble sort of thing going on. I mean, they've got the gas canisters. This does look like a lab, except for obviously the tape deck computer system over here. That we still have those chairs. It's all pretty ringing a bit close to comfort. There's litter everywhere. There's a lab coat on a hook. Like, just kind of
And this
kind
is
of rings a bit
present
more.
day tech, right? It's not like the wall of tech like Avengers or the
Yeah,
Council of Kangs or, the
yeah,
other things that we've
yeah.
covered. This is just a
It's
regular.
it's not Reed Richards's Galactus healing tech. It's just human elevation tech.
And I did think his name was Arthur Smith, but I see that maybe his name is Arthur Light. So sorry about
Yeah,
that. I don't
that
don't know where I got Smith from.
nominative determinism. I actually quite like the art here. I probably just glossed over it at the time that I read it, like just because I didn't realize how hard it was to make black and white things in color comics and vice versa. But it reads pretty well. The translucent thing, the fact that this guy is a ghost, gets really well solved. The chains obviously would have escaped. Like, I actually would have thought at the time that they would have been chains like Lobo, like as part of
Hmm.
his costume, not chains like the Charles Dickens book, which, as I mentioned, that now just makes me grin wildly inside. Like, who wouldn't think that chains is just a part of your everyday wear that you wrap around your massive forearm?
Especially in the 90s, right? Is this, well, this is back
I
almost the 90s.
I would have read this in 1991, 1992. This
So
would
yeah,
have, yeah, um,
chains were de rigueur at that time. I mean, we were
yeah.
all wearing, I was wearing chains like in high school at that time.
Okay, well, yeah. As part of your vestments. So this is where we get that conflict. So one guy was trying to join the Justice League, and then the other, Arthur is trying to like make a buck and sell this on, and then it all really comes to a head, and he realizes that like the tragedy of this story is that they're sort of both responsible in many ways for each other's descent, right? I kind of like how it got they did have the resolution at the end, Patrick. So this final thing makes me feel like, yeah, that it. I feel Doctor Light is a character to be pitied rather than a character to be um
Yeah, and it's, it,
ad-
I I thought it was unfortunate that the ghost of his friend sort of is questioning whether or not he killed him. He did not, according to my reading of the
Yeah,
comic, and then he discovers that the guy had stowed his Dr. Light equipment in the control panel and probably caused it to malfunction, killing himself.
yeah,
Dr. Light kind of gets the blame for it. He's haunted by this ghost and, becomes a villain, but it's like, but, why? Yeah, like you said, he was trying to make a buck, but I mean, who isn't, right?
yeah.
Who hasn't
So
sold their company secrets for money? Come on,
yeah.
right?
So this has gives a little bit more depth to Arthur Light, and then just as in, we're going to have two or three asides. The first aside is the next time I see Dr. Light, he is in Identity Crisis, and he is not a figure to be pitied in Identity Crisis.
Mm.
With that tonal shift, uh, Identity Crisis in isolation, absolutely fantastic. Love it. Love the art. Love the story. Was there any seeds in your reading that Dr. Light would become this?
Oh, yeah, no, not at all. Did they explain it? I haven't read, I have that, but I haven't read it in a while. Like maybe he snapped, right? I don't know.
Yeah, he's kind of like King Lear almost.
Yeah.
Just a figure of paranoia.
If my tarnished bronze reading schedule wasn't so onerous, I would, throw that in the list, but I think it's going to have to wait. But it's
Yeah,
really good.
it's
And I even have the follow-up. What is it called? You said Identity Crisis. Wait, yeah, there's a follow-up. Can't remember what it's called though. Do you have
well,
that one?
that's a big help to everybody, Patrick. That's a
I
follow up.
know.
Don't know what it's called.
It's Identity Crisis. And then I can't remember. It's not quite as good, but it's pretty good. I thought it was good too. Let me just go ahead. That was your first.
So
That was your first side
my
note.
second aside is based on the cover. There's maim or hurt, and then that's really hurting, and then on my terror device, it's got kill. And so all the while, I'm waiting for this Dr. Light dude to start fighting the Legion of Substitute Heroes.
Now
Um,
we've talked about this for me. I did you learn from that, and at what age were you finally like, oh, the cover doesn't necessarily depict anything that's connected to or will happen in the issue? Because I feel like I was well into my teens before I finally figured that out.
no, I legitimately just sort of was confused because I didn't quite get that the cover could be stylized. Like I knew that some covers didn't depict what was in the story, so I'd already
But you
tweaked at
still pick
that.
comics based on the cover.
But I liked the cover, and then I somehow expected because it had, yeah, it just was a very strange.
100% the same. Like I honestly I'm shocked. I'll look at comics and I'll think, "Oh, so I was say 14 when I bought this comic." I can tell now because my tastes are very similar. Like I'll be like, "Oh, I love the cover. The comic is not so great." By this time I was reading comics probably for 8 years and I still was buying comics based on the cover. Like I
So
don't know. Sometimes the art inside wouldn't even match the artist, right? And I wouldn't even like the art inside, but I'd love the art on the cover and I'd still buy, like, I don't know.
even 40 years later, we're still doing that on this channel. I think we've got some Justice League issues where that
But
very thing.
but they were already purchased. We didn't buy them because,
Okay, yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
guess
still making the same story, the same mistakes after all these years. Ugh.
so.
Oh,
Patrick,
go back one quick
oh,
note. Sorry, because I do have one side note. I did not put this in my notes, so this will throw you off. But when I saw it, I was struck by it, and I remembered when I read this. Sorry about that. So, third to the last panel, it took an embarrassing amount of time to figure out what the vibrating, floating yellow bunny was doing. Like, what is that bunny? I don't understand until I finally realized, oh, that's perspective. That's an outlet. That's a nightlight. I literally thought, why is that bunny vibrating? Like, I don't understand it. And I'm telling you, I mean, let's not say 5 minutes, but it took like too long for me staring at that panel going, what
so
is that?
Patrick,
Why is it?
if you want to talk about vibrating rabbits, you're gonna have to go on a different channel, mate. Like,
Even thought about that.
so
Inadvertently dirty. So
so
that's sums up my life.
so I'm glad that we managed to cover all of my childhood traumas and some of your curiosities.
There you go. I was
That's
not
good.
roaming around in people's bedroom drawers. That's not, no, absolutely not.
So, Patrick, I'm conflicted. I don't like this is just okay. I think these people went on to do great things. I quite like the art in both of them for very different reasons. Would I say that this is a great comic? No. Would I say that if I was, say, working for a comic company, would I see people who are doing this who go, "Oh yeah, I just need them on the right thing and they'll be fine." So I'm kind of in the thing where this is a little bit to me like Batman 315. I hope that I've convinced you that this art is
Mm.
like kind of cooler than what you might have thought on the read on that
You
detailed read.
100% have 100%. It's still not what my eye is gravitating towards, but I do absolutely appreciate it more than I did at the beginning. 100%. There's no question. Um, I would, if only for the two stories and the cast of characters, I'm totally fine with putting it above Batman 315. My question, and again, I'm always in this dilemma, what is JLA 236 again?
236 is where the reach exceeded the grass. So we have that awesome underground subterranean aliens kind of thing going on, and they're
Oh, I didn't know if
fighting.
that was 234. So that's 236.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's 236. 23. You mean Avengers 304?
304 is Puma.
Yeah. Then we've got
236, I was unsure of.
23. Yeah, 236 is it's got to be in one of those original four issue sagas, right?
Hmm. I think, with the UFOs, I'd put this below Avengers 304. I don't
Oh
think I
yeah,
even
no,
need
it's
to
just
know what to do.
I just wanted to say that this is not a badly crafted comic. It's just it's a little the ground it treads is a little bit dull, and it's not to everyone's taste. So it's I don't suggest to go out and buy this, but I do suggest to try those Ty Templeton. That if you at all like Batman, these are one and done issues, like just single issue Batman stories that are actually quite good, done in that style, but just with less sort of like text everywhere. So
Quick question. The Not So Amazo saga, was that slotted in between Avengers 304 and Batman 315?
no, Mazo was just above Ambush Bug.
Got it. Okay. So I didn't know if we had to compare the two. I mean, this is obviously better, but not much better.
Yeah, I think the difference that I have is that this is executed in the way that it like it just is what it is. Whereas the other
Thin
thing,
rule.
the execution is just a total misadventure. So Patrick, I'm happy to just slot this in below 304, above 315. It's not the most terrible thing I've ever read, but the fact that it's two 22-page things that are just like okay, it says it all. The other thing is are we going to? You mentioned two further things when I was delving into my Legion backstory and my comic book backstory, and I might have forgotten one or two of them that you mentioned, but yeah, we are definitely going to have to do some more of these. So I know we've done my first Superman issue, we've done your first sort of comics. Are there any other ones that are on the docket as far as firsts
First.
that you can think of?
Oh, there was one. Okay, so one of my first Superman comics, I know I've mentioned it to you, is Microwave Man, right? I
Okay.
know there's no way you could have forgotten that. That's definitely one that I feel like we should do now. It's so old that it may be difficult for you to find a reader's copy. I'm sure you don't already own it. It's not necessarily
I'm
well
not.
regarded, but it has one of the best fight scenes ever. And in fact, I took those panels and somehow pick stitched them into a nice little collage that maybe I should text to you just so that that'll whet your appetite and you'll be just chomping at the bit, I'm sure, to find it and read it and review it. So that would be one that pops into my head immediately.
Okay, yeah. Other than that, I think we're just going to keep on trucking with some of the Legion coverage that we've already done. We've definitely got a lot of things in the pipeline, and we're slowly getting through the interstitial Avengers. And so, if you like our content, like, follow, and subscribe. We do try and find things that aren't sort of the classic Bronze Age stuff. So we probably won't do Watchmen. We probably won't do um, we definitely won't do Marvel Secret Wars 2, but my
No,
arm could be twisted and we could do Marvel Secret Wars 1.
maybe.
Um,
I don't necessarily think we should do Crisis, but I know Crisis. I don't have. Did you tell me you haven't even read it?
I haven't read, I've read Infinite Crisis,
What?
Final Crisis, The Dumb Crisis, The Crisis of Multiple Merging Crisis.
The
Uh,
Crisis of the Torn Toenail, the
yeah,
Crisis of.
and I've read all, and to be fair to our audience, I've read all of the Crisis tie-ins, and that's just turned me off, except for maybe the Legion tie-in where Brainiac and Supergirl, like Brainiac more and Supergirl, like all of the other Crisis tie-ins are like Crisis tired out.
I feel like they were tie-ins were new at that time, so I think it was. I think yes, you're right. They weren't executed, and in fact, one of the issues that we're coming up on at some point will be the Magpie issue
Oh,
from Tales of Legion of Superheroes, which also has a very strong Crisis tie-in that even to a Legion aficionado such as myself doesn't really make any sense at all. And I don't know if those were ever tied up and I just have forgotten those loose ends, or if it was just an aborted idea that they never got back to, but it was very confusing. I just recently reread that issue and wrote my notes for that. So that's actually something that is coming up. But you're right, the tie-ins are terrible. Crisis itself has its moments. What is it? Issue, is it 7? I think where the death of Supergirl, spoiler alert. Um, that one is a great one. There are some great
so
battle scenes.
so just before we go on, Patrick, if you're watching Tarnished Bronze Secret Origins issue 37 or 47 special, and you are not aware that Supergirl dies in Crisis, then I can't help you because if you've made it this far, yeah,
You've made it
sorry,
this
go
far
on.
in life without knowing what's going on. Do not take a psych eval test because they will ask you what the date and who the president is, and you may not be able to. I have a friend who said anything that happens after 1990, she has no idea what's going on. So you never know. I mean, I guess that's predates 1990, so even she would know that.
Okay, yeah, so
But Crisis
yeah,
has its moments. I would not fight for it because it can be a tedious read. It sort of collapses under the weight of itself to a large degree. I know it's maybe Secret Wars 1 is the inverse of that, which is why people really love to hate it at this point. As you know, and we've our listeners, all three of them know, I'm a huge fan. It does not suffer from that problem from my point of view because it's a little bit simpler and more just like a fun knock'em sock'em robots
yeah,
kind of
it's
adventure.
we're not trying to straighten out 50 years of continuity. I think Secret
Yeah.
Wars might just be a bit of an easier gateway and more fun for us to read rather than have
Yeah.
to make copious notes. So that said, Patrick and I have more notes to make because we've got a lot more comic books to cover. I've loved just going through and looking at some of these old issues that give me a trip down memory lane. So I'd just like to thank my grandma for getting me this crazy comic back in the day. Um,
And on that note, I want to thank my grandma, my granny, because I am from Appalachia, and because she was one of the people who really helped encourage my comic book collecting lifestyle when I was a kid. I lived very, very far away from the city. There were no comic books probably on sale in my entire county where I grew up, and so it was oftentimes visiting my grandmother in the big city when I was able to get some comic books, even from the grocery store. So. Also have fond memories of my grandmother when it comes to comic books.
awesome. And mine got me onto Asterix as well, which is we don't really cover the Bendar's Destiny on this channel, but maybe we should. All right, like, follow, subscribe, and we will catch up with you all later.